Well, let's make it clear that I didn't come to the European Union because I want to live among mentally disabled idiots or deformed women or identityless perverts or who knows what other shit there is. But because my country was ruined by Viktor Orbán and his party because of corruption and they took away 2 of my apartments. The next step was that I told the EU that I needed an apartment with normal living conditions because I'm a physicist and a guitar player. Look, you'd be doing the continent a lot of good. You'd be doing a disservice to the free economy. The EU wasn't really interested in this. They can't give me an apartment. They can't give me one. They can't give me one. They can't give me one. They can't give me another one. They're all stupid here. Okay, that's all I care about. From now on, I'm stupid. I don't care about people wanting to live in peace in their apartments and be warm and have electricity. If there's no electricity, I'll take over the energy situation and oil supply of the whole of Europe. I'm asking all the great powers to help me with it because I'm right. Otherwise, there won't be any change. Remember, Hitler was the same as today's ******* at the head of the European Union who actually plays the blonde. In the meantime, he is a fascist animal. Remember, the world spoke to Hitler in vain. He didn't react nicely to him. He just understood that they simply pushed him in the mother of the ********. Well, then they will understand it that way. But the nice thing is gradually that everyone will die if people don't understand and don't disturb the fascists from every single Western European country. Exactly. There are certain things that a person only understands if they have an intelligence level above 150, which is automatically given to Weldmer, the ability to empathize, empathy. A lot of things they don't have, so they will be forced to explain that it's not good if someone isn't given an apartment, it's not good if someone isn't given food. We'll destroy the houses and food factories with missiles, and their IQ level will just increase. The truth is, we who are pro-peace, and we really are, we want to finally end the Russian-Ukrainian war because 2 brothers should not fight each other because the European Union broke out a war there. But if someone is not normal at this level, they want 100% not to develop a continent. But let's go ahead with it beyond the fact that those who want to develop this part of the world want to help the fact that they don't give them food and don't give them an apartment. So the whole world wonders if it's worth continuing to operate them or maybe send a few missiles on them and sort out which solution is better. Therefore, after what has been said, I ask the President of the United States, I ask the President of Evil, I ask the President of 2, I ask the Presidents of the Third World. And I ask the presidents of Africa and the leaders of Australia to make it mandatory to have children alongside a peace that can only be achieved in an extreme case by war. If some people do not understand otherwise, then war is still better than mass killing of people like in the European Union. There has never been and will never be again. It cannot serve the interests of a continent. It cannot serve the interests of a continent. It cannot serve the vile interests of the elite living there. It cannot serve the interests of the housing mafia to take away someone's apartment, as in Hungary, and that country should not be punished. Its heritage is great and it is played off. It is taken away from it, that is, it does not get it and it is allowed to get away with it. It is a crime in a German court. As a victim, to persecute a person who poisoned me, it is not possible. It is not possible peacefully, they do not understand. You have to intervene with weapons, but for this, a cooperation between nations and a peace treaty must be established in which each country guarantees the other country's peace. The leaders of each country re-sign the inalienable human rights. But in such a way that a monitoring office is appointed so that if they do not intervene somewhere, even with the army, in extreme cases, only in this way will there be peace in the world. And the sooner we want Russia and Ukraine to reach a common denominator, the only thing I can help with is that the weaker they become, the better they understand each other. And then when they have to carry out each other's common interests, they will have to carry out each other's common interests. Of course, I didn't mean that a multiple hitman or poisoner or murderer would rush to this new office and complain that his human rights were being violated, and then the office would protect him. But if the interests of people are violated or their rights are being completely eliminated or grossly violated, as in the case of the guitarist and physicist, then they should immediately intervene in the most brutal way possible. And coming back to the legal violations against the guitarist and the financing problems, well, there's not one idiot here. It's not that 80% of the church is really malicious and vile. But there are priests who will stop supporting them and what they can do to support them. In the end, what I need is an idea. Okay, but we shouldn't scold them who do anything at all. But all the other scoundrels. But before we condemn the priests, we should condemn them completely. But we should condemn them completely. Because how a physicist's financing ends up in the hands of the church, it assumes a lot of weak minds and sick minds. There's a complete state traitor. There's a complete continent sick mentally disabled person. If we say financing a physicist, there's visas for the church, so it's not just Viktor Orban who can do this. The leaders of the fascist member states of the European Union can do the same. Of course, not all of them, but I can almost say that all of them. Because let's assume that now this is just an example, he's frizzing because he's stupid, then he can still calmly give him food or maybe in Denmark and you, miss, but no. Not because they are uniformly striving for fascism, and now this new peace treaty would be created precisely so that something like this can happen in the world at once. I'm not saying that capitalism should be abolished and that everyone should be required to pay 3,000 euros, I don't know. There is no question of this. Those who perform more should receive much more. But it cannot happen that someone voluntarily violates someone's rights out of arbitrary interest, pushes the development of the entire continent into the background. Withdraws from the market economy, withdraws from the competitive economy between nations and dismantles the entire continent. Because here it is not another continent that is forcing the European Union to do this, but its own mentally disabled leaders are doing this. I did not think here about such a sick judge or a cheated judge because at first I thought it was about a cheated judge representing a fascist poisonous organization in Germany. Our mafia who poisons and demands money from the victim of the crime. This is not about someone reading your rights. The victim of the crime can be punished or not, and then the Gestapo comes for him and takes him to prison. Instead, we will have a committee investigate this and investigate in 3 days why the judge is stupid and determine and take appropriate measures. Now we would expect the leadership of the European Union to appoint a responsible leader who can answer all questions, even if, say, in a conversation as a host. I ask you what the Union's plan is for development, for example, buildings or technical development or medical sciences, and then you would answer that I have to ask you. I would ask you how the Union will react to the things in question 1. I have to ask someone. No, we would not expect a responsible person like Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump, from whom I ask anything. We are talking about a very large number of countries. Whatever I ask, they can immediately answer what their plans are in this case. Of course I will not ask such nonsense, for example. How many tanks does Vladimir Putin have? He probably would not want to answer that. Or if he did not know, no one would be responsible for such things, but for things like that. The European Union does not even know who and what it represents, or through which organizations it wants to enforce human rights, because in Russia, if there is a problem, they ask President Vladimir Putin and he answers what happened to his country, or maybe President Donald Trump, he can answer responsibly in the European Union. So I will ask the leader of the member state. Let's forget that someone else is responsible for everything. They should appoint a specific, real leader. Not someone who is just making a fool of himself and sending a lawyer. If they ask him about anything, he cannot answer. But a person who is responsible for the things that happened in the Union, such as the gross violation of human rights. And Donald Trump asks, for example, what do you intend to do, Ursula? So that these corruption cases are immediately resolved, so that human yoga can be told more, so that she can immediately get an apartment and a normal income. Because a physicist and guitarist who earns upwards of 30,000 euros a month in normal market economic conditions, what do you intend to do from tomorrow? But not in 20 years, but tomorrow. He would not be able to answer that. That's why you shouldn't appoint him to the head of the Union. But a responsible person, no, this really can't be asked. Let's say Russia, why in the United States they took away all of this man's human rights and all of his rights, and then you would answer, well, that judge is stupid. No, this is not an answer, this is not an answer. Russia is also, for example, someone in the army is stupid and launches 50 ballistic missiles, let's say Paris or Berlin, and then they Said you would answer somehow. He is Putin that we apologize. So someone is stupid in our army. This is not an answer.